Swayam Prabha, Digital India, Educated India.
So let me come back to what we taught in the previous class. In fact, I thought I fumbled a little bit towards the end. There was a few mistakes here and there, not exactly mistakes, sort of few messed up stuff here and there, but when I posted the same in the group, people said no, things were okay. So I'm very happy to note that, but still what I will do is I will quickly run through some of the things I thought should have been covered a little better. So these are the stuff we talked about. So we now understand that what is the specific heat capacity. It is essentially the dq dt divided by the total M, and under constant pressure or constant temperature, we are going to use the notation, at least the book uses the notation CV dot, which is 1 by M dq dt at constant volume, and Cp dot, which is 1 by M dq dt at constant pressure. Let us use these two notations So what are these? These are essentially specific molar heat capacity, right? Essentially, the temperature rise or the space, the definition of Cp for 1 mole, right? And you must also understand that the derivation that we did, this particular thing, is actually valid for specific molar heat capacity. And not to forget that both of these expressions are valid for monoatomic gases. Why? Because as we have discussed in a completely different way, cap sign, I just mentioned it's specific per unit mass, specific heat capacity per unit mass. Please do understand this, we take it for granted. In principle, you can have some stuff like this, and that becomes an extensive property. Everybody understands this? This can be the property of an object. This two or these four, all these four are properties of a material. Clear to all? Coming back, so these relations are valid for monoatomic gases, right? Remember that. If anybody has a doubt in the derivation, I can quickly run through it. Otherwise, I will skip it. You can just refer to the previous day's notes. It's quite nicely done. I did not mess up much. So this is the only relation that we need from the kinetic theory of gases. So you get this, and this is, so essentially this is the number of molecules present. This is the total volume. And this is the average translational kinetic energy of each molecule. So now the total number of molecules. So what you can do is V by Na gives you the number of moles, total number of molecules divided by Avogadro's number. So you can replace V as N into Na, and do a quick transposition of this V to the left side, capital V, which is the volume. So you get a relation PV equal to 2/3 N into NA multiplied by half MU bar square, right? And what is this? This is actually, this turns out to be 2/3 N into UT. In fact, you can put a dot here, following the notation that we have decided to use, because somebody asked, I have forgotten who asked, but somebody asked why I have put a cap and why I am putting a dot here. But remember, or let me put in a word of caution, I think for the heat of formation, the cap will be used for the molar heat of formation. I don't remember exactly how it is, but it might happen. So just to confirm that this class now understands the difference between these three notations, right? Everybody understands this, or for that matter, nothing on top, cap on top, and dot on top. Everybody understands what is the difference. So this is for any object, any body, right? So this is going to be the heat capacity, of course, is going to be different for a 50 kg object and 500 kg object. This is the specific heat capacity if the material is same. So it's essentially per unit mass, and this is going to be per unit mole. So we are using a notation of dot to sort of indicate a molar property, and therefore I guess we will do better. Some problems today. I think we will do better to use the cap over here. Just give me a second, please. So we will do better to put a cap, which sort of gives it relates to PV. And all we do next is we simply relate it to PV equal to nRT. Therefore, what we get these two relations, we combine, and therefore what we get is 2/3 N UT dot is equal to nRT or UT dot. So this is the molar translational kinetic energy. In fact, I have written it carefully today because I was it is essentially the molar translational kinetic energy. And for monoatomic gas, or for that matter, essentially for an ideal gas, what we have is this. Everybody by now understands this because we have pretty discussed about this concept in pretty much detail. So what we get is molar kinetic energy is U dot, and that turns out to be 3/2 RT, right? And then what are the stuff we should consider? I'll just run it for 2 seconds or 2 minutes. We need to remember or understand two particular stuff. One is the definition of enthalpy, which is H equal to U plus PV. I think the class now understands the physical significance of enthalpy, right? And we need to understand the first law of thermodynamics, so which is du plus dw. And we often write this as for a system or for a gaseous system which is likely to expand, right? So everybody understands when I write from this equation to this equation, what is the implicit assumption? Everybody understands what is the implicit assumption? No constant pressure. No, it's not constant pressure. That's the mistake people do. Of course, constant pressure, but there is, agreed, constant pressure, but there is something more before that. What is that? Material is known, no. System is not rigid, yes, partly correct. But what all of you are missing out, I do not want a very long, elaborate discussion on this, that the possible work done, only mechanical work. Yes, Siddharth, absolutely. The only type of work this system can do is mechanical work. That is the only PV type work or only mechanical work. Adarsh Kumar, it's time you start mentioning it as mechanical work. The only possible type of work the system can do is mechanical work. That's the assumption. You must understand every single thing, of course. And then as you write PDV, it's a constant pressure system, right? Absolutely. Right. So now if we look into the definition of CV, right, what we get is it's 1 by m dq dt at constant v, and therefore what you get is t of u plus pdv dt, and for a constant pressure, constant volume system, this is going to be 0, and you have 1 by m. So you can write it as du dt or whatever you want to do, and that's what you have as the definition of CV. On the other hand, if it is CP, we now understand it very well. dq dt at constant pressure, and so what we write, ddt of u plus pdv, and all we do is we just add vdp, agreeing to the fact that under this condition vdp is equal to 0. That is what you can mathematically convince yourself. So ddt u plus sorry, yeah, I think I need to take out, yeah, this is fine, u plus I can write it like this. I mess up at times with this. So eventually it turns out to be ddt of u plus pv, and 1 by m is there. So it's dh by dt. So this is all simple stuff now. We have the definition of CP and CV, and we have, so what we know is, and then also what you can do is that you can replace this PV equal to RT, and then you can show that CP equal to, or molar, for case of the molar CV, molar CP, you will get CV plus R. This turns out to be 3 by 2 R from the derivation we did. So this is going to be 5 by 2 R. So CP by CV for a monoatomic gas is 5 by 3. Sometime you will find people are talking about CV equal to 3, and also sometime you will find people are talking about CP or CP cap for that matter, CP dot for that matter, is equal to CV dot plus 2. These two relations you might have come across somewhere or may come across in future again. These two relations are dependent on the value of R. And this is actually based on the value of calorie per gram mole Kelvin. So that that 1.987 is approximated to be 2, and therefore sometimes people tend to write that CV dot is equal to 3 and CP equal to CV plus 2. Be careful, these two are unit dependent systems, while this one is not. So there was somebody who mentioned 1.67 in the previous class. It's all fine. So this is all done. You need to understand that this formula rigorously, in its full rigor, is not applicable. None of them are applicable to gases like oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. Why? None of them are monoatomic, right? Remember that. And another thing, let me tell you, in fact, there is a very interesting thing that one can make you understand right now. But let me make a statement now. Please remember, steam is not an ideal gas. That's the reason I have shared the steam table with you, and we will use that, right? So whenever there is a problem involving steam, please refrain from using the relation PV equal to nRT. Also, you have a simple system, very simple system. And you supply some heat, movable piston, blah, blah, everything is there. And because of that, if initial temperature is T1, what is the final temperature? Can you find it out? Can you find it out? Super simple problem. Can you find it out? No replies are coming to me. Network issue maybe. I don't know. Yes. Conservation of energy can be used. Okay. How? N is known, mass is known. Yes. Path taken of P2, V2, ideal process. Yes, Jain. Q is known, M is known, then others. Are you silent? Are you not answering? Are you unable to connect? What is the problem? Right. All that funda, Sridhar, I know. Change in energy will be equal to heat provided and work done. Don't give me funda. We can use Aditya Agarwal. I just want to know what is the final temperature. Is it possible to find out yes or no? I just want to know that. Ideal process. I apply the heat so slowly that it's a quasi-equilibrium process. Path is known. Have the guts of asking the right question. Do you use CP or CV? Ayush Aryan, very clever answer. Yes, that's the way to find out the temperature. You cannot use the MCP delta T in whichever form. Because under this system, neither CP is going to suffice nor CV is going to suffice. But if you know the initial pressure, volume, final pressure, volume, and initial temperature is known, then you can use the ideal gas law and see such a simple question. It took 5 minutes for the class to answer. You can use the ideal gas law to get T, but you cannot calculate it the conventional way. Is it clear to all? Because for such a simple system, the specific heat capacity is not defined. Is it clear to all? You don't even have to do P2 V2 by NR, Ayush. You can simply use P1 V1 by T1 equal to P2 V2 by T2. And from there you can find out T2. Agreeing that P1 V1 is known. You don't have to care about which path it has taken and all that. Initial condition is known if it is fully defined, right? And of course your temperature needs to be defined. and final temperature. The constant mole, these are simple things, Tanvi. Don't keep on asking the same thing. There is no change in mass, no reactions. Of course, it's an enclosed chamber. Why should the number of moles vary? But my question is very simple. When I ask you to find out delta T for a system, right? If I say that I have 30 grams of water or whatever, I have added 100 calorie of heat. Initial temperature is 20 degree. What is the final temperature? What will the class do? Q equal to m Cp delta T, right? Assuming Cp to be constant, not a function of T. Cp is known, m is known. This is T2 minus T1. Q is known. So simply you get an expression for T2 minus T1 equal to some numbers. You just add it, right? What I wanted you to impress upon or make you understand that for this simple, super simple problem, this approach is not going to work. Has the class understood what I mean to say? Yes or no? Don't keep on asking questions like, yeah, mass is conserved, this and that. Mass is conserved. If PV and T are known, everything else is known. But that's it. If somebody asks, what is the specific heat capacity for this system? You just have to raise your hand, so you do not know. Because specific heat capacity for a gaseous system is defined under two constricted conditions. Either it has to be constant volume, it has to be constant pressure, right? So you cannot find out this problem following this approach, but if I make this container rigid, then you can use it, right? Because then what will happen? Your specific heat capacity CV you can use. And you can use this under only one condition, that the volume expansion takes in such a way your pressure remains P1 all along. If somebody mentions that I ensure the heat transfer in such a way that the volume changes, but there is no buildup of pressure inside the vessel, pressure remains constant and the volume changes, right? Only under that condition you can use Cp, otherwise not. Is it clear to all? Right, so we move on to something that to me is quite boring, but it is very useful. And what is that boring stuff? That boring stuff is heat capacity of solids. And I am simply going to rush through all this because I want to reach the latent heat of fusion, and therefore get my hands on Clausius-Clapeyron equation and vapor pressure. That's another concept building step. So heat capacity of solid, you have something called the Petit and Dulong. I should have drafted all this before. I have to write all this. Petit and Dulong law, which essentially says that heat capacity, I'm sorry about it, this one sentence you may want to copy or see from the video or just read your book. Heat capacity of all crystalline solid elements is nearly constant and is equal to (6.2 calories gram atom Kelvin. Don't get confused by this statement. They are nearly constant, but it is constant only for 1 mole, right? Because the unit is calorie per gram atom. So the moment you want to find it out as calories per gram, you are going to divide it by the atomic weight. Therefore, the numbers are still different. And does the number 6.2 remind you of something? 6.2, we talked that R was equal to 1.987 and therefore approximately 2 calorie per gram mole Kelvin, and for monoatomic gases we had Cv equal to 3.0. So what happens here is C, or you can, it's solid, so you can also write it to be Cp, but I would like to be pedagogically clear. So this turns out to be the molar C for solids turns out to be roughly 3R. Is it clear? So it's roughly double of that of monoatomic gases, right? Or in other words, what you can write is Cp, which is per unit mass, or C you can write, you can use the word cap also, into the molecular weight or the atomic weight is equal to constant for all crystalline elements, and it turns out to be equal to 3R. So if you want to have the value calorie per gram Kelvin for an element, all you have to do is you divide the value 6.2 divided by the molecular weight or the atomic weight. Is it clear to all? Then comes, let me just finish it. There is nothing much to understand. Don't forget these are 100-year-old concepts. But in engineering, as well as in many branches of very high-end material science, let me tell you, these are first approximations that are still used today. But, well, empirical relation, people did a lot of experiments, did some measurement, put it on a graph paper, fitted the data and figured it out. Nothing much to really understand. So why I repeatedly say there is nothing much to understand? This is also something you should remember when understand when I'm repeatedly telling that there is nothing much to understand. What we do not understand is why this happens, why this is 3 times R. Because, for example, for this one, we did understand that there was a scientific basis coming out from the kinetic theory of gases which gave us this, and therefore it was understanding, which we do not understand here. And therefore, my question to the class now changes. Have you noted it down? So I won't even ask you, have you understood? This is where it changes from a scientific understanding to storage of knowledge. Just remember, what is important now in the digital era where you can access every data, every formula, every stuff in the internet, it is important to know that something like this exists. You may forget Cp equal to 3R, but unless you know that somebody predicted that some relation like this exists, you will not even be able to find it out in the net. That's the only utility, right? This is very easy. You may remember the number Cp equal to 3R or C equal to 3R, but that's all about it. Next, an associated concept is also there, which is known as the COP rule. It is also very easy and very effective. The heat capacity. How to execute COP rule? I think in the tutorial I will take up a problem of a solid compound. Please understand the progressive differences we are making. So this is compound, this is crystalline material or crystalline solid elements, right? And this is for a compound. Compound is approximately equal to the sum of heat capacities of the constituent elements, right? So this is what it means. What it means, how to execute. So if you have something like Na2, NaOH or something like that, right? Or everything is solid, it has to be solid. So a solid compound which comprises of solid elements, right? Then you can sort of use this, that the stoichiometrically you can add up to individual Cp values to get the total Cp values, and everything is equal to Cr. I will take up a problem to show how it works. Important thing to remember that both Petit-Dulong, but particularly the COP rule, COP rule is valid also for liquids. right? And what you also need to remember, so something I forgot to mention, that this formula works well for elements with atomic weight greater than 40. This is how it goes. And also, therefore, we have some exceptions. So for solid, it turns out carbon equal to 1.8, hydrogen equal to 2.3, boron equal to 2.7. Please do not mug any one of them. Even if in a closed book examination, if I ask them, these numbers will be provided in a help box. Please do not worry, right? And you can see the deviation from the classical statement of Petit-Dulong law, because that talked about crystalline solid elements. What you have is some values for elements, but not all of them are solid, not all of them are crystalline. And I repeat, this particular slide is more of a storage of information rather than any understanding, but I need to teach it nonetheless. This is how it goes. So in one of the initial slides, I told that for a complete calculation or energy requirement calculation, let's say for a system, right? That is heated from somewhere over here to here. And we understood very well that we need 5 physical parameters. Why? Because your total heat requirement is going to be, or the total heat you have supplied, or the total heat requirement is going to comprise of 5 steps. First is heating of the solid to its melting point. Then the latent heat of melting. Then heating of the liquid, heating of the material through the liquid from the melting point to the boiling point. Then the latent heat of boiling, fusion, I think. No? Yeah, latent heat of fusion. And then heating it up in the gaseous state. So we need at least 3 values of specific heat capacity and 2 latent heat values. And what we find here, that we now have some formula, some mechanism that gives us at least a first-hand approximation of the CP values of some of the material in the gaseous state, in the liquid state, and in the solid state. So this is the utility of this whole exercise that we have been doing for the last 1.5 classes. Is it clear to all? And this is a huge help in certain conditions. Is it clear to all? There's nothing much to understand. And I think I made a wrong statement. So the latent heats are fusion is melting. Next, we need to worry about the latent heat of fusion, which is the melting, and the latent heat of evaporation. Latent heat of vaporization. Sorry. Right? Boiling. Any comments up to this point? I guess no, because as I mentioned, these are boring stuff. Nothing much to learn. It's going to hot up now. This turns out to be there is no empirical relation. There are no rule, no formula that tells you that there is any relation for the latent heat of fusion. There is nothing. So for a system, if you want to find out what is the value, you have to do some calorimetric measurement. Nothing can be done. Okay, and therefore that's where, when you do some fuel lab in your third year, you will learn how to measure it. Often, let me skip this. Okay. There is, however, this can be latent heat of vaporization can be directly related by thermodynamic equation to vapor pressure. And what is the equation? The equation is dP star dt this is what is known as the Clapeyron equation. You may be knowing, I do not know if you know it. You all know Clapeyron equation? Ideally, you should know, I'm not very sure. But even if you know, there is one concept I will clarify, vapor pressure. Clapeyron equation is known to the class or not? More number of people kindly respond. 2 yes, 2 no, it's impossible to understand, and 4 out of a class of 120 is too small a sample. Not clearly, fine, okay. So it's a mixed bag. Some people know, some people do not know, and I can understand. Fine. Oops. Before that, so what you actually have, any idea what is the left hand side of, okay, let me write down what are the stuff here. P star is the vapor pressure. T is the temperature, of course. Okay. Delta HV is the molar latent heat of vaporization. And Vg and Vl are specific volumes or molar volume of the gas and the everybody understands what is molar volume, or what is the nearest approximation of that, or what is the nearest property to which it is related? I think Rishi's answer is the most candid one, because yeah, by name, and even if you know the functional form, there are a couple of things I need to clarify. And one of the most important concept that very few people fully understand is vapor pressure. Let me come to that. And there are so many beautiful things which are associated to vapor pressure. A lot of things we know. We will not just only look into the numbers. Whatever little understanding we have developed based on fundamental science and physics, we will actually understand vapor pressure pretty nicely. These two everybody understands, or what are they? Specific volume everybody understands. What is its name? What is the nearest thing you can do? Molar mass by density, I would put it as simply, yeah, molar mass by density is 1 by density. It's analogous to opposite of density. Shayan, you are absolutely correct. So if you calculate density per mole or something like that, just opposite of that, right? And therefore, any conclusion you may want to draw, it's volume occupied by unit mass. That's a specific volume. Any conclusion you may want to draw between these two? Based on the property of gas and liquid, extensive, more specific. This PPT is hanging, I don't know. Okay, let me see. Any other conclusion you may want to draw? Abhishek has told extensive property, which is fine, but we do not learn anything. Anything else? Rohit, firstly, I do not have, I think I told somebody, I do not want an answer with a question mark, because you are giving an answer. You are not asking me a question. And get your basics right. What you have written is completely wrong. Yes, Adrija. Specific volume of gas is much, much higher than that of liquid. Very good. Obviously, no. Per unit mass, it is very logical to conclude and also learned using this symbol correctly. This means much, much larger. Don't use such symbols to give a feeling that it is much, much, much larger, because all this will lead to a much, much, much smaller number in your exam paper if I am checking, right? So be careful. I have seen even this type of stuff in answer books to impress upon me that it's really very large. And of course, I nicely draw, if I am in good mood, I also do a lot of artistry while copying, checking. I also put a nice dot, and this is the marks the student gets. Be careful about that. Madhurija, well appreciated. No, Shalini, it depends on density. Density is fine, but back of the envelope, first understanding is specific volume for the same material, specific volume of a gas. Gas, let's say 1 kg or 1 gram of a gas versus 1 gram of a liquid under same pressure and temperature, is the gas is of course going to occupy much, much larger area. This is clear to all now? Now wake up if you have been sleeping during this Petit Dulong and COP thing, because now again we are back on track and we are going to talk about science. So if you are dozing, kindly wake up. Is it clear to all? And I have started asking again, is it clear to all? Because it is not a storage of information. This has now concepts. Is it clear to all? Great. Now comes the question. Two things I need to know from the class or clarify to the class. What exactly is vapor pressure? Right? And what does the left-hand side give you? I will stop here. Thank you very much.